The Panthers win on the road in Game 1 against Carolina to take a 1-0 series lead. And more importantly, the Panthers were able to capitalize as the Canes beat themselves.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, May 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. And joining me on this edition of the show is Jacob Winans on another edition of Winans Wednesday. You can follow him on X at Jacob Winans8. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. So the Panthers defeat the Canes in Game 1 by a final score of 5-2. The Panthers score 2 goals in the first period. The Canes were able to score just before the second period on a goal by Sebastian Aho, which we'll talk a little bit of more of whether that was a kick or not. The Panthers were able to still put the foot on the gas, especially in the third period for 2 third period goals, and they break this one open, which and Jacob, one of the biggest takeaways that I have for the Panthers is when it came to the Carolina Hurricanes, they were number 1 in PK percentage going into this series, and they were number 1 in rush defense, rush chances against through 2 rounds. And man, the Panthers, there was points in this game where I was kind of sweating, not literally, but emotionally, because of how the Panthers were getting jumping in on the rush, and then how many times we saw the Sebastian Aho line get their chances and then not capitalizing. And then it happened where the Panthers were able to capitalize then. And man, 11 different players with points, 3 of them with two. And that's my biggest takeaway is that the Panthers were risky, but calculated risk once again.
Yeah, I think it's pretty telling in the post game. You hear the comments from Paul Maurice. He said he didn't love their game tonight, but he understood it. I feel like that's kind of everyone's sentiment. That's definitely the way I feel after that one. Didn't love the way they played defensively, especially first period. Gave up some rush chances they'd like to have back. Spent a good amount of time in their own zone, trying to cut off the cycle, and Carolina really did a good job of controlling possession for long stretches. But at the same time, it's a completely total contrast in style from what they saw in Toronto and what they saw in Tampa. Tampa wasn't really the hard forechecking. They were more east-west, not blazing fast necessarily, but they came into that series and tried to skill their way through it. And they tried to capitalize on special teams, and the Panthers kind of shut that down. Then you get to Toronto, and it's a little bit more of the long stretch passes, the cherry picking, more of that style of play, and they didn't really have the territorial edge. So it's a different style there. And then you get to Carolina, it's your third completely different style of play that you're having to adapt to. And this one, there's no time off in between. So they kind of played this game a lot of the same way that they played against Toronto, and which Carolina will beat you in some of those areas. If you get too aggressive, they'll capitalize. They're fast. They're north south. They don't really mess around or try to skill it up too much. They get the puck and they go. And you saw the Panthers give up a couple of chances like that. But with that said, the Panthers risks and chances they took kind of paid off on a couple of the goals. They were very opportunistic. In a game like this, when you're not as tight defensively, you're going to need some goal support from the special teams. That was a big area of concern going in. Carolina has an elite penalty kill, absolutely incredible penalty kill, but the Panthers were able to score twice on the man advantage. So you get that goal support from special teams, and that could be the difference. So I think the Panthers got a really, really huge win, got off on the right foot while playing maybe a B- game for what they
Yeah.
normally like to do.
Yeah, especially because the Carolina Hurricanes, their way of getting ahead into play is the fact that their forwards are so high up in the defensive zone. So if you're going to be as aggressive as the Panthers were, especially the third pair for the Panthers, the Kulikov and Nate Schmidt, there was one shift that they were up into play, and then it was Sam Bennett and Carter Verhaeghe back on to defend the rush, and it was thankfully Sergei Bobrovsky was able to bail him out there. So thankfully for the Panthers, they were able to just not get behind. And the thing is, I spoke about it in the cold open about the Carolina Hurricanes beating themselves. Jordan Staal losing the puck. He hears footsteps with Evan Rodrigues coming, and then he sets up Aaron Ekblad. They set a screen on Freddie Anderson, which you think multiple screens set on Freddie Anderson, even by his own player in Scott Morrow, which you saw kind of the nervousness from the young players for the Carolina Hurricanes. Morrow was making his playoff debut. He screens his own goalie and gets a penalty for delay of game for the Hurricanes. And then I saw so many times that Logan Stankoven there was one shift where he had the puck on the half wall, and then Nate Schmidt is there to separate it very quickly, and he doesn't know what to do. He's hesitating. And also, the Panthers could have the Canes could have either tied the game or either take the early lead, where they were getting boxed out in their own end, where there were some of those backdoor plays that just weren't connecting. There was one to Logan Stankoven that missed the net completely. So that was another thing. And also there was one later in the game. So the one by Shayne Gostisbehere on the power play, which I thought that the Panthers also got away with that as well.
Yeah, and I think when you look at this game, there's no room for complacency because there were a lot of opportunities in this one where Carolina could have taken control or could have tied or taken leads. Panthers are fortunate to get a win. It definitely is not as lopsided as the score indicates. That Carolina didn't play a poor game necessarily. I think they played a very undisciplined game. They played a nervous game. I think after a couple of early saves, I think they were a little bit overthinking how to beat Bob. A couple breakaways stopped. Aho gets a golden opportunity, gets stopped on the breakaway. They had some chances, and Bob slammed the door, but you can't expect that level of play from Bob the entire series, even though he gave it to him last time they played Carolina. It's a different Carolina team. Seth Jarvis had an opportunity off a Svechnikov pass that easily could have been a goal. It looked like a tap-in. Svechnikov, again, he wasn't a part of the last series due to injury when the Panthers played the Hurricanes last time, but he's been a monster in the playoffs. I feel like he was undisciplined tonight, was trying to be more physical than what he really is normally showing in his game. There was just the mental edge was very clearly on the Panther side in this one, and I think it showed itself in some undisciplined plays. Like you said, the Jordan Staal play, that's not a play you expect him to make too often, and he flubs the puck and the Panthers capitalize. So very opportunistic Panthers team tonight. You probably don't want to count on getting 5 goals past Freddie Anderson on most nights, and I think this series is going to tighten up significantly and become more of a low scoring 1 to 2 goal deficit or 1 to 2 goal difference type of games. But you never complain about going in, starting a series with a win on the road. I just think the Panthers are going to want to tighten up a lot defensively. It's gonna mean less offense for Florida, because if you're going to tighten up defensively, it's going to be less chances being taken. You're gonna limit the risks. You're gonna focus more on the dump and chase game, which they've been very, very successful with, and that's going to be the key to beating this team. Like you said, the forwards for Carolina are so high up. Whether it's power play or 5-on-5, you have to get pucks behind that line of forwards, and you have to pressure the D and make it hard for them to get the pucks out. So I think as the game gets more towards the Panthers style, you're going to see the Panthers score less, but you're also going to see a lot less in the way of opportunities for Carolina. So I'm comfortable with where they're at. I think they're gonna find their game, but fortunate to have a 1-0 series lead after that one.
Yeah, and this is where they could go back on the video and then adjust from there, because and same thing on the Carolina side. They know that they're not going to be as spread out as the first goal from Carter Verhaeghe, where Barkov was able to easily get through the seam, and then Freddie Andersen goes down, he roofs it from there, and then how they got and then on the power play for the Panthers when Sam Bennett scored, on just how they were able to just not get the shot blocks in front of him to as that one easily went through, and also with how they actually said it on the replay of Shayne Gostisbehere not having the stick on the ice when Nosek fed to Eetu Luostarinen. So that's another thing that they're going to look at, and we could expect that those feeds from the boards to the net aren't going to be as easily as they were in this game for the Panthers. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we are going to discuss our 3 stars of the game and the moment where we knew the game was won. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. And are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. And Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no-shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, road trip, or just need a quick protein boost. They're my go-to. And if you love cracking open a shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. And I just got a delivery of those pistachios. Sometimes it's best for me if I have those in my cup holder in my car, and if I'm at a red light, I could just quickly grab some pistachios, and then, hey, I don't have to worry about pit stops in the middle of the road. So that's the great thing about Wonderful Pistachios there. So get snacking and cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Segment 2 here on this Wednesday, May 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Winans Wednesday edition of the show, here with Jacob Winans here. And it's not yet midnight here on the East Coast, so on the anniversary of the Panthers winning Game 2 against Carolina, where Matthew Tkachuk scored 2 of his 3 game-winning goals for the Panthers, and then 4 years ago, Ryan Lomberg scored against the Tampa Bay Lightning, got past the Tampa defense, and the Panthers cut the series deficit to 2-1. Great. May 20th is a great day for Florida Panthers hockey. And also, did you see that Manny Diaz was trying to pump up the crowd for the Carolina Hurricanes during an intermission? Hurricanes, Manny Diaz, strange combination, Jacob.
Yeah, I'm a diehard Miami Hurricanes fan. So seeing Manny Diaz in there, I've seen him be on the losing end of some big Hurricanes games in the past. So I wasn't exactly shocked. No, but Manny Diaz is a good guy. Just not sure that he'd be my first choice to pump up the crowd. But no, it was that's pretty funny actually. That's a good one. Oh man. No, it was a funny night. We had some good quotes, some good talking points. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so let's get on to our 3 stars of the game for the Panthers. Number 3 star, I'm going to go with Niko Mikkola. A big assist to AJ Greer to make it 3-1 for the Panthers in the second period. And a lot of the replays won't show the whole play, but Niko Mikkola was avoiding the forecheck from Jesperi Kotkaniemi on that play, and how he rushed almost 200 feet off the ice, was able to get. And also, if you look at the replay, for the listeners, look at the replay again. You'll see how loud that stick tap was on the ice, calling for the puck and then backhanding it to AJ Greer to get before Freddie Andersen could shift left to right, and then boom, 3-1 Panthers. And then, but that's not my moment where I knew the game was won. But still creating that 2-goal deficit with where the Panthers are great when it comes to those. Number 2 star, I'm gonna cheat a little bit. It's not a specific player. It's a whole fourth line for the Panthers. I gotta go with the fourth line for the Panthers here. They did it all. Tomas Nosek had the best game score of any Panther in that game. I mean, you're looking at three hits for AJ Greer, 1 block, 3 shots on goal. Jonah Gadrich, 8 hits, 1 shot on goal, 2 blocks. Tomas Nosek, 3 blocks for him. And that was the only, through 40 minutes, that was the only line that was plus in the shots for, shot against advantage for the Panthers going into that third period. So huge for that fourth line to get to make their presence felt. And even that was a question that was asked in the morning skate availability on just knowing what their job is, staying ready. And number 1 star, Bob. We spoke about the breakaway saves on Sebastian Aho, but he also had a big save on Jack Roslovic when he had when he lost his stick. Roslovic went high. Not only did he get it on the glove, but he was also lifting his left pad to hopefully get something on the puck as well. And also the first how calculated he was with freezing the puck when the Panthers had their first power play. Before Carter Verhaeghe scored, they had a hard time getting the zone, and Sergei Bobrovsky knew to live to see another faceoff. So not once, but twice, he was able to freeze the puck and say, "Okay, let's live to see another draw for the Panthers." So not just with the saves, but just how he was able to just read the game. And also, credit to the Panthers around him. He's not many screens, able to see lanes, very perimeter based, and Bob was able to slam the door. Although they did give one up on the PK in the third period, but the game was over by that time. Your 3 stars, my friend.
Yep. So my 3rd star, it's a tricky one. It came down to 2 defensemen, and I didn't know who to give it to, but I'm going to give it to Niko Mikkola. Aaron Ekblad just misses out on my 3rd star, and the only reason is the Aho goal at the end of the first period. I feel like he made a poor decision there, but other than that, he played a fantastic game. Niko Mikkola was unreal tonight, jumping up into the rush more than we'd like him to, but it paid off. He looked excellent next to Seth Jones, but the play to set up the Greer goal is such a high skill level play that you do not expect from your defensive defenseman, who's I won't say he's a stay-at-home defenseman because he's really not. He's a tremendous skater for his size, but he's a defense-first defenseman, and you don't often see those kind of plays from guys who play that style. So he's my 3rd star. My 2nd star, I'm not going to go with the whole 4th line, even though they're all deserving, but I'm going to give it to Tomas Nosek. I felt like he played his best game tonight. I loved everything about his game. And then the key for me is when Brad Marchand is done for the night with his 14 minutes of penalties, Nosek gets the call to move up to the 3rd line. First shift on the 3rd line, he just a beautiful pass to Etu to set up that goal. I mean, that was a high skill level play. And he's earned the trust of the coaching staff. We saw when Erod got hurt, they put Nosek on the top line to finish that game. He's defensively responsible, but he showed some skill tonight. And that's a good problem to have when you have your 5th line, the line that starts as your 5th line for the playoffs is making such an impact. I thought Nosek was fantastic. And I'm going to surprise you a little bit here. I've got 2 number 1 stars.
Okay.
My number 1 star is Sergei Bobrovsky. That's my first. I thought he was terrific. Made some breakaway saves, made some huge saves through traffic, which is going to be the key in this series. We know Carolina likes to prioritize point shots and have at least 2 guys screening the goalie and looking for tips. That's kind of their MO on offense. He has to react quickly. He has to see pucks through traffic, which is the toughest thing a goalie can do. And he also had to deal with a lot of contact, some intentional contact on a couple of occasions that
twice in a row at one point.
Exactly. And the Panthers are going to have to deal with that, whether it's the officials, the league, or the Panthers themselves. One way or another, that's going to be dealt with. But he had to fight through some contact and some traffic to make some of the big saves he made tonight. So he was terrific. My second number 1 star of the night is our sleep schedule, because last time we played Carolina in game 1, we were up for how many hours watching that game? And I'm just happy that this one ended in regulation and we didn't have to go to several overtimes and barely keeping myself awake to see Matthew Tkachuk finally end the game. It's a great memory looking back on it. I can't imagine how I would have felt if we lost that one. But number one star tonight, I am so happy for my sleep schedule.
That's a good one. And you mentioned about Carolina and generating offense when it comes to point shots. All right, I have a question for you. Do you know how many shots lines 2 to 4 of the Carolina Hurricanes got on the night?
I don't, but I do know that the top line for them generated something like 8 of their first 10 shots or something like that. I know it was a crazy stat. Carolina's top line was driving all the offense early. So I'm actually interested to hear this one.
9.
Wow.
Yeah. So the Panthers were just you don't want the Aho, Svechnikov, and Jarvis line to beat you. If they're the ones beating you, you're in trouble. But the fact that they had nothing else outside of it, and it's point shot. I mean, look at the defensemen for the Carolina Hurricanes as far as shots on goal for them. Jacob Slavin, 4. Scott Morrow, 3. Sean Walker, 3. Burns, 1. Orlov, 1. Shayne Gostisbehere, 1. And when it comes to defense, I'm like, the fact that the Panthers can clean up things and don't allow those rebound chance opportunities often for them, it's exactly what we talked about when it comes to how the Panthers' high-end scoring has just a major advantage in this series, which is why I picked them to win in 6 games. So far, so good. But the moment where we knew the game was won, which it's hilarious, Kenny Albert put kind of an announcer jinx. He said, the Panthers have gone 15 minutes without a shot. What happens when they're on the power play? Sam Bennett shoots through a screen. Brad Marchand is right there in Freddie Anderson's kitchen. They score to make it 4-1. It's over for me in that moment. How about yours?
Yeah, my moment where I thought the game was won is also that power play goal. I don't know the exact stat, but I'm going to look for it. But the Carolina Hurricanes very rarely give up multiple power play goals in a game. It's highly uncommon, especially in the playoffs. They, I think, had only given up maybe 1 or 2 power play goals their entire postseason at home. Very, very uncommon for them to give up multiple in a game. So I thought the second that the Panthers score a second power play goal, Carolina was in very unfamiliar territory. They're not used to playing from those kind of deficits, especially when it comes from special teams. So I thought that was the final nail in the coffin for the evening.
Yeah, and they equaled the amount that they had prior to it. And even when I spoke with Zach Martin of Locked On Hurricanes, the only other power play goal that they gave up was on a 5-on-3 to Alex Ovechkin. So you're not. It's hard. I mean, whenever you have him on the ice, it's going to be hard to not have the puck and end up in the back of your net. But the Panthers just coming in waves, 11 different players getting points, and just the Panthers continuing to be a wagon as they are. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to just take the time to appreciate Brad Marchand, discuss the whole situation with Shayne Gostisbehere, and also something that we found out in the media availabilities. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Segment 3 here on this Wednesday, May 21st edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Here with Jacob Winans on another edition of Winans Wednesday. And man, the fact that the Panthers were still, no pun intended, able to weather storms is just continuing to show how well equipped they are for these moments. I mean, Jacob, we hadn't even talked about this yet. The Aho goal that Bob complained was kicked. I want to get your thoughts quickly on that, because his back was towards the goal, but it was crazy to think that one counted. But Paul Maurice did make the right decision in not challenging that one, because going into a period, possibly on the penalty kill, that we discussed that in the chat, how even though we didn't agree with the kick, with the fact that it counted, good decision not to challenge.
Great decision not to challenge. I didn't agree with the call. I thought it was definitely a kicking motion, but it's an interesting one because it was backwards, so his back is to the goal, so it's a little bit harder to classify that as a distinct kicking motion. I was more so upset with the play leading up to it. It just made no sense having Aaron Ekblad chasing that puck to the opposing blue line with 20 seconds left in the period that you're up 2-0. So you'd like to not do that again. But I thought it was the wrong call. I do think if it was called no goal on the ice, that would have stood. I just think it was a situation where the call on the ice was going to stand either way it went because it was so close. So great decision not to challenge. You definitely don't want to give Carolina a power play heading into that second period. So veteran coaching decision there from Paul Maurice.
Yeah, and the Panthers were in the middle of a change as well. That Reinhart was coming off the ice, and then Matthew Tkachuk was coming on, and he had to play defenseman there. And we know that his movement is not necessarily the best, even when he is healthy. But with the injury that he sustained in Four Nations, you know that it's going to be hard to stop Sebastian Aho when he's coming up the gut like he was in that. So thankfully, the Panthers dodged the bullet there, and it was another period where, once again, the Panthers have not lost the game in the Paul Maurice era where they're leading after a period in the playoffs. Just outstanding how they continue to just play with the lead, and then they're able to just continue to shut things down. So let's discuss Brad Marchand and just how he fits so well in the system. And it's crazy. Did you notice in the first period that there was another setup from the half wall to Eetu Luostarinen? They didn't score on this play, but they had the same exact set play from the half wall, which Eetu Luostarinen did not land on net. And I'm just like, my face was like this. That looks familiar with that play. But just Shayne Gostisbehere was passed the puck. It was a little late. I will admit there, grazed them a little bit, but I get the intention, the frustration that South Florida native Shayne Gostisbehere had. But not only did Shayne shoot the puck into him while trying to shoot it out of their own end, but he admitted it after the fact in his media availability after. So that was a little shocking. You actually pointed that out to me right before recording. So interesting to see as they had a little bit of a scuffle. The Marchand was given the 2 roughing penalties and the game misconduct, and it's crazy to think that we hated this from Marchand for so long. But you see the intimidation factor that it could carry from game to game. The fact that, hey, we're not only beating you on the scoreboard, but we're beating you psychologically.
Yeah, the Panthers are known at this point for being the villains getting in everybody's head. And then when it's the guys who are being pests and being annoying and getting in your head that are also scoring, it just compounds the frustration. So when you see Sam Bennett leading the NHL right now in road playoff goals, he pisses off the other team, and then he goes into their building and scores on them. That's got to be incredibly frustrating. Brad Marchand, we just saw what he did in Toronto. He turned that whole series around with an overtime goal. Game 7 was untouchable. He was the best player on the ice. Follows that up tonight with another strong game. Doesn't necessarily provide a ton of offense tonight, which that's not what you need him for every night. He's a third liner. You don't need him to give you offense every single game. But what he does do, like you said, the intimidation factor, the pest mentality, the constant talking, the run that he takes at Gostisbehere. There's no ill intent there. He's trying to rattle somebody. It's the playoffs. He's trying to throw a big hit, make his presence felt. And it gets to Gostisbehere, and you see the result of that. So I think that's great. That's one of the main reasons you get a guy like Brad Marchand. But I was a little surprised to see Gostisbehere admit that he shot the puck at him intentionally. A little bit surprising on that front, because you typically don't see players say the quiet part out loud like that. I guess I do respect the honesty a little bit. He was candid. He was honest, and that's what you want to hear more of in hockey post games. You don't just want to hear the same 3 canned responses that you sometimes get from hockey players. So at least his dialogue is open. I'll give him that. Saying that after a game 1 when it looks like the other team is in your head, I don't know if I would publicly tell the other team that, hey, you're in my head, but it seems like that's what the case is now. And also, just I doubt anything will come of it. But Niko Mikkola got fined earlier in the season for shooting a puck down the ice at the end of the game. Didn't even hit anyone, but they looked at it and fined him for a reckless play there, launching the puck towards someone.
I think he did hit. He hit David Savard, I believe he did.
He aimed it at him, but I don't think it actually made contact. Yeah. So,
not the point,
so,
but
exactly. Yeah, exactly. The intent, they honestly, it helps further the point that they fined Niko Mikkola for just the intent of aiming a puck at someone. It'll be interesting to see if anything comes of Shayne Gostisbehere intentionally firing a puck at someone and admitting to it. We'll see if it results in a fine or some sort of discipline. I doubt it will, but just something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. And the barking of Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk right at Taylor Hall in the neutral zone. Well, Tkachuk and Bennett were on the bench while Taylor Hall was on the ice. And another thing about the intimidation factor, we saw Sam Bennett early on deliver a same kind of hit with the forearm on the chest to Dmitry Orlov, similar to what he did against Jacob Slavin in Game 4, right before, unfortunately, Jacob Slavin wasn't able to return to the game. So that chirp in between Bennett, Tkachuk, and Hall, which, by the way, speaking of beating themselves, Taylor Hall almost beat himself as well as he was skating near the goal, and Eetu Luostarinen almost converted. That was very early on in the second period. So it was, even though the Panthers didn't capitalize on all their opportunities, it was just another example of just overall sloppy play by the Hurricanes there. And we spoke about how the Panthers didn't play their best game. Even Paul Maurice publicly spoke about how he wasn't necessarily impressed by them. So that's another thing. The great thing is they have a lead. They can improve on it, and 7 more until they reach their goal again. But you go with a little bit of a sense of content. Hey, and we didn't even mention this. It took us until 32 minutes to mention this on the show. The Panthers stole home ice again. That's a great thing. We're just so used to this team being on the road that it's just like, oh, they stole home ice. Shrug.
Pretty much, and we've seen them do it. And honestly, now in the last 3 or so years of playoff hockey, we've seen them have just pretty much every scenario you can possibly have to start a series. We've seen them start at home. We've seen them start on the road. We've seen them win both road games. We've seen them split the road games. We've seen them split the home games. We've seen them go down 2-0 on the road, come back, win both home games just last series. So they're comfortable playing in any position. But their success rate is very, very high when they start a series off 1-0 with a road win. That's huge. I don't know that they've lost a series in the last 3 postseasons where they started. I mean, they've only lost one series in the past 3 postseasons, and they lost that game on the road. But when they start 1-0 on the road, they've won every time they've started a series that way. So I think it's a good position to be in. And now all the pressure, like we said, all the pressure's on Carolina. If you go down 2-0 at home and having to go back to South Florida, it's not a team that's going to roll over and quit by any means. But at that point, that's when you start. There's going to be the doubt creeping in, especially given that it was just 2 years ago they got swept in the same fashion. That shadow of a doubt is going to start to creep in at that point if you can take a 2-0 lead on the road. So I think the Panthers have to play that game with a lot of desperation because Carolina absolutely will.
Yeah, and not only winning games on the road and different situations, but yeah, this was a 2-day break, but they've also won with large gaps. So you think Game 5 in Toronto and then Game 1 in Carolina in 2023. And then same thing with the Stanley Cup final last year. That was a pretty long layoff for the Panthers in between their series win against the Rangers. I mean, obviously they had to wait for the series, the other series to end between the Stars and the Oilers, but they had to wait quite a long time before getting Game 1. And hey, they got off to a 3-0 series lead. So nothing phases them. That's the great part about this. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, a successful Winans Wednesday edition of the show. Tell everybody where they can follow you online, my friend.
Yep, you can follow me on X at Jacob Winans 8. And one last thing, one final quick stat that we didn't talk about on this episode, but this win officially puts the Panthers across the halfway point to the promised land. We have passed the midline, so let's keep this thing rolling.
No doubt. I can't. Hopefully we added the Panthers add on another one in game 2. So Jacob, thank you so much, and I will see you next week.
Looking forward to it. Thanks.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.